we all want to feel as though we fit in this in the space, in this world, and a lot of people do drift. And I was very guilty of drifting. And you can live without a purpose. You can be from day to day just going through the motions. And I talk about that a lot, sort of just that sort of sleepwalking essentially through life. And so the difference between those that are living and those that are existing is simply that they have that purpose piece all figured out, okay? And that they are spending the rest of their life working towards achieving that. It's just a case of knowing that who you are, what you do, and what you have is all within your control. So what are you doing? Are you living or are you existing? Are you in control? Are you taking control and living your life with self-awareness, with responsibility, and doing something you're passionate about?
Hello and welcome to the Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Locke, professional speaker, magician and confidence coach. And quite simply, Unlocked is a journal of self-improvement. I'm talking to the experts, authors and successful people from around the world, as well as sharing my mishaps and magical adventures in my own life too, to unlock the best version of ourselves. My aim is to give you some insight and inspiration so you can unlock the best version of yourself too. Now, if this sounds like your cup of tea, then hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my latest episodes released every Wednesday. Now, relax and enjoy the show. Hey, welcome back. This week, Amy Rowlinson joins me for a conversation all about purpose. Amy Rowlinson is a life purpose coach, podcaster, professional speaker, and also a residential portfolio landlord. She has a fascination for understanding why people do what they do, and on her podcast, Focus on Why, which ranks in the global top 1%, she shines the light on purpose, fulfilment, and curiosity to empower others to forge their own paths. Her mission as a podcaster and life purpose coach is to give a living legacy of inspiration, insight, and knowledge, and to create positive ripple effects. As you can imagine, she's the perfect guest to come on to Unlocked to help others unlock the best version of themselves and live that life that they've always dreamed of. I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm a big fan of Amy's podcast. I'm a big fan of her work. I've known her for a couple of years, so I couldn't wait to get her on this podcast. But by listening to this episode, you will learn how to create a life that you truly desire. You'll be able to understand the difference between just living and existing, how to recognize and identify when you're in flow, and how to identify and recognize your purpose. This is a cracking episode. I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, at the end of the episode, head over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, leave us a review and let us know what you think about this episode. But without further ado, enjoy this episode on Focus on Why with Amy Rowlinson. Amy Rowlinson, welcome to Unlocked. How are you?
Ricky, it is an absolute delight to be here. Thank you. I'm really well.
Oh, fantastic.
Little hot. We're recording this when we're all sweltering. So if you listen to this in the depth of winter, it can be a nice day at some point.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. You obviously won't be able to, for anyone listening to this, you probably can't see on the screens, but I am dripping wet on my face. It's so I've just turned my fan off so we can make a good recording. Yeah, Amy,
it's a good look.
It's a lovely hot weather, hot day, summer day, but we're going to have a great conversation. I'm really excited for this because obviously you're an awesome person. I've known you for about 2 years now, I think, but also because of the purpose and the mission that you share is also very similar with what I'm doing with this podcast. So really excited to get you on here. Obviously, the listeners will know from the amazing intro about what it is you do, but I'd like to know a little bit more, Amy, about who you are and what it is that you do.
Wow, who am I? That's a big question, isn't it? It's the question that, we spend our entire lives trying to work out. And well, at this point, I am a late 40 something. So I'm 47. And that's quite important to me because I call myself a midlife beginner. And I really have discovered in my 40s incredible things. Personal development has been one of them. Restructuring the family dynamic and the family finances has been another. Understanding how I can make my stamp in this on the planet without hurting it, really take effect and see how I can carve my name in, but also be of value and of contribution. So who am I? I am many things to many people, but to myself, I am simply Amy. I am doing what I love doing, and that has come about as a result of a lot of hard work to enable myself to live a life of conscious design. And it has been an incredible process. It's been a difficult journey, but also an enjoyable one. It's not always been super easy. And I look back on the sort of last few decades and wonder what I was thinking life was about then. It's just so curious to how different it is to where I am now. But it's a good place to be.
I love that. And that whole concept of I'm Amy. I think that's what we all need to be more, isn't it? Be more Ricky, be more Amy. Stop putting all these labels on ourselves. But importantly as well, we obviously have labels such as our job roles. I know that obviously you're a life purpose coach, master NLP coach as well. But I'm particularly interested because the way that I got to know you was through the Professional Speaking Association, but also because you have a fantastic podcast called Focus on Why, which also to the listeners, we'll put a link in the show notes if you've not listened to it, because it's in the global top 1% of podcasts, if I'm correct.
Well, according to listennotes.com, yes, it is. So as far as there's that sort of comparable, it works, then yes, that's what they're saying. So what's important to me is that, yes, I can see my metrics. I can see that it's now in 114 countries, and I can see that people are listening to the podcast in all of those different spaces. What's important to me is that the podcast, it has a purpose. And of course, I talk about purpose. So of course, that's where I was going to start. And that purpose is purely to help other people to understand what they want to do in life and understand that it's okay to not have a purpose right now, and that will happen at some point. And it doesn't have to be this huge, big light bulb moment that a lot of people have and you feel sort of pressured to have yourself. It can be a small contribution that you make that builds. And even if it doesn't build, then know that you are just doing one thing that is making a difference to others. Because I think in life, you get all your pleasure and your satisfaction and your happiness through seeing how you make that difference, how you can help others, and that contribution that you make. So for me, the podcast is that piece.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating podcast. I'm a big fan of listening myself, and I know that there's a few guests that the listeners will recognise. Obviously, Mel Louisu, and obviously who's been on the podcast, but also Jake Richards is also a good friend of mine as well, who's in my mastermind group as well. But I love this whole concept of purpose, and you mentioned something there that's really resonated with me in terms of my life, in terms of thinking, just coasting through life, through an ex-corporate career, to think of what is it I really want to do. But if we can explore this, what is this why? What's the why all about?
Well, it's just that understanding who you are and where you belong on the planet. Essentially, it's the problem that you're solving. So we all want to feel as though we fit in this in the space, in this world, and a lot of people do drift. And I was very guilty of drifting. And you can live without a purpose. You can be from day to day just going through the motions. And I talk about that a lot, sort of just that sort of sleepwalking essentially through life. And so the difference between those that are living and those that are existing is simply that they have that purpose piece all figured out, okay? And that they are spending the rest of their life working towards achieving that. So I always talk about the fact that I'm on a mission to stop people from filling in the moments and to create moments that are fulfilling. And it really is that sort of simple difference of semantics. And yet there's a massive raft of excitement in between the two.
Yeah, and I saw this from, I've been doing a lot of research about you, Amy, and I've seen this from obviously your website. You have this wonderful thing, which is similar to me. I came up with an idea that was going to go into the podcast introduction for this new kind of, I keep saying season because it's just easy to say, although it's not a season anymore. This new bandwagon of podcasts, there we go, about why settle for ordinary when you can be extraordinary. And I love that part of your mission and part of your plan is to help your clients to design the life that they desire through living and not existing. Tell me a little bit about that, and what's the difference between living and existing? You mentioned that kind of thing about the sleepwalking thing.
Yeah.
But I guess if we explore that more, why is it that so many people are just living, or well, just existing and sleepwalking? Yeah, why is that?
We can fall into the trap of seeing what other people are doing and aspiring to that being the set route. And that's where I'll use my own story to demonstrate. So I was going through the process. I went to university, found myself a boyfriend, got married, had children, and I stayed at home to raise those children while my husband worked, and we were paying off the mortgage, and we were looking to plan to retire and travel around the world and do all the things that you kind of have on a set way of living. And then I realized that one day, it wasn't a one day, but there was a catalyst that one day I was like, enough is enough. When I looked across at my husband, who'd just come back from work, and he was just the sort of ghost version of who he was. And I was just like, this is not sustainable. He is burning out already. He is the sort of not the man that I met 20 years prior to now. He's certainly not going to continue in this way. And, my kids are going to lose their dad. I'm going to lose my husband if we carry on like this. So this is where I talk about existing. We were going through the motions. We were absolutely having a great time. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of things that we've done together as a family, and we've achieved lots of things. But we just sort of got into that routine of waking up, keeping our lives and days busy without stopping to really think about what is it that we want to achieve? What is it that we're trying to do here? Are we even happy in what we're doing? And I sat down with my husband, and he said, well, I've got this spreadsheet. I think I can retire in 5 years. It's going to be okay. I can hold on. I'm like, you're not going to be able to hold on for that length of time. And so we set about a plan. And that plan was a very conscious, I was going to leave my work so that I could dedicate my whole time to building a property portfolio, which would allow an income to come into the household, which would then allow my husband to step away from his city job. So we focused on that. He knew that he could then sort of keep going, knowing that there was something else happening. And there was some kind of plan and action that meant that he was able to keep sustaining himself a little bit longer, certainly not the 5-10 years ahead that he knew he had ahead of him. And he went down to working part-time. Meanwhile, I educated myself in financial literacy, in personal development, in understanding more about what the potential of humans have. And it was just eye-opening, Ricky. Honestly, there was just so much there that I took on board, and I was starting to change in myself. I was evolving into this better version of Amy. And it was incredible. And I got excited. I have to say I got excited, and I started sort of like saying to everybody in the house, come on, everyone else can do this, and realizing, yeah, that's not going to work. Just step back and do, get off that crazy mentality of trying to sweep people into the same route as you. Focus on your own business, focus on what's important to you, and other people will see the difference, see the changes, and they'll also recognize what they could take, what actions they may take that are relevant to their own lives. And so that's what happened. It took me 3 years. My husband stepped away from his work. He's now doing a lot of volunteering. He is a whole different person in terms of his health, mentally and physically and emotionally. And that's a difference between existing and living. I'm now podcasting. I am coaching. I have every day is a conscious day of enjoyment and of understanding how I can add value to other people's lives. And as a result of that, the children have seen this entire shift in who I am, the role model that I have now become, without sort of forcing it down their faces. They've just seen that happen naturally. They've seen more of their dad, which is incredible. He's at home all the time, and he is there for them, and the relationships have changed. And yeah, I can't say any more than just illustrate it with the actions I've taken.
That's amazing. A huge leap there in taking responsibility, seeing that your husband wasn't looking great. I can imagine it. I see this now in my head with my mum and dad, and with that, my mum and dad's just retired now, and you could see my dad worked down a brickyard, so you could see that it was having an effect on him. And I think if he'd have stayed there another 5-10 years, arthritis would have kicked in. A horrible thing. So I love that. So you started to take responsibility through that. So it sounds like you did it. Was it in 3 years, where the plan was originally he was going to retire in 5? So you beat that goal already. And then once you then started to think, well, actually, we can make this happen. We can live this life that we want to. Where did that then lead into, do you know what? I'm now going to go help other people. I've kind of used the formula myself. I can prove that we can make a difference. How did that then change to what you're doing now?
So the whole purpose of the podcast is that piece. So at the beginning of lockdown, I had another business with a business partner, and he decided he wanted to do his own thing. And I have to say, I was really disappointed. We'd been building up the business. It was a property training business. We'd been helping people with the practical side of property with a huge amount of experience. Both of us have had over the last 20 years. And I had been a landlord for a long time before I realized that I could have leveraged that more. And so we had a podcast. We had the Property Vault podcast together. We were training people. We had a network event. We had 75 people coming to our events every month. It was fun, absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. And when he said, "Oh, I don't want to do this anymore," I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to do it on my own." And then I realized, actually, I don't want to do most of it at all. What I love doing is podcasting, and I love the coaching. And so I took the two elements that I love doing and built my own business in my own way. And that's how Focus on Why was born. I woke up with the idea literally a week later from that decision. And we went into lockdown on the 23rd of March, 2020. And on the 1st of April, I'd woken up, Focus on Why just came to me. My unconscious had been working hard for me. And within a month, by the 30th of April, I'd launched it. And I knew that it was going to make a difference. I knew that I could bring together all the learnings, all the knowledge, all the practical application of what I had taken on board over the previous 5 years and bring that into this space that would be an incredible medium to translate that to people, that they could then take it on board in their own time. They could listen to the stories of the people that I bring onto the show. They could hear my own reflections with actions and take on board that into their own perspective. They can essentially use the podcast as a soundtrack to their own movies, and they can then
love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic thing. A podcast is an incredible medium. I know we're videoing here, and it is accessible to people on video, but from the perspective of if you're just listening to it, you are already living your life. You're already taking on board this as just as a sound to what you're seeing out there, what you want, what your vision is. And by hearing these words, you're thinking, yeah, okay, what's important to me? How does the story that Amy is sharing relate to me? Because that's what's important. It's about what can I take, what can I extract, and what can I then apply? And so with the podcast, I knew that this was a perfect medium. Take it out to people, one person at a time, build it, use the network that I had already. I had a strong network in the property industry. I had started with the Professional Speaking Association, so building up a huge network there. Leverage the people who are already on my social media platforms, speak to them, who wants to come on the show. And my goodness, we're at almost 300 episodes later in just over 2 years. It has been a phenomenal piece of work in terms of what that then has gone on to create. And those are positive global ripple effects where people have listened to what they've heard. They've then gone on to take action. They've then made those things happen. And then again, they have created their own ripple effects.
Yeah, and absolutely, I'm high-fiving on the camera here to Amy because that's an absolutely amazing achievement to what you're doing now. And the quality of guests as well that you're attracting onto the podcast as well is amazing. Now, Amy, I appreciate that, that was such a great story, and there's lots of parallels between me and my story. And I appreciate that maybe a lot of listeners out there are probably going through that right now where, this doesn't feel, right, this can't be it. This is my life. This isn't where it should be. That point like you had where you and your husband, you could physically see that this isn't right. This shouldn't be happening to my husband. I need to do something about this. To people out there who aren't fulfilled, that they're kind of just existing, not really living in that moment. What would you say to them to start thinking about how do we start to identify our purpose or even recognize what fills our cup and start living a life that's more fulfilling and meaningful?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is to just take away the stress around, I've got to find my purpose, and just understand that the purpose is just a word. Don't be scared about it. Just see it as something that you want to focus on more than anything else. So something that you enjoy. Okay. Something that you want to accomplish, something that you enjoy in terms of what drives you, what fills you with curiosity, what gets you up in the morning, or what angers you, what upsets you. What is it that really annoys you? And you think, oh, something should be done about that. Well, maybe it's you that could start that. Maybe it's you that could make that difference. So absolutely, you're talking about what's going to fill you up with fulfillment. Whatever delights you or angers you, start there and then just take a step closer each day to achieving whatever it is that you want to focus on. And so what difference do you want to make? What contribution can you make? It doesn't matter how small it is. It could be on a local, even in your family level. Then it could be a little bit wider. It could be out into the local community. Then it could be national. Then it could be global.
Hey, it's Ricky here, and I'm just pausing the episode really quickly to remind you that you can watch video episodes with all guests, receive bonus behind-the-scenes content, and extra episodes, all for as little as just the price of a cup of coffee. You can do this in the Unlocked Patreon community, but rather than me tell you why you should join, here's one of our Patreon members and what they have to say.
Why do I think being a patron of the Unlocked podcast is awesome? Ricky. That's it. I've known Ricky for a very long time. We worked together back in the day at Argos. He's always been supportive, engaging, and one hell of a magician. Still don't know how he does half that stuff. This podcast is everything that Ricky is all about, and being a patron, I get to support him in this journey, and I get to learn some really useful stuff along the way. We get some exclusive content as patrons, and it's so worth missing out on a coffee each month. So come and join us. You won't regret it.
So just like Ant, to get involved, head to patreon.com/the Unlocked Podcast or click the link in the show notes and come and join the fun. Now, back to the episode. I love that. It's a great way of explaining, because not many people talk about that in the anger sense, of saying, and I never really thought about that. You're absolutely right. A lot of people just say, what makes you happy? Where are you experiencing joy? Like I read a lot of Jack Canfield's book with the law of attraction. A lot of those, when they're talking about that, is what makes you happy? What sparks joy? But actually, you're absolutely right. Actually, where are those things that actually is annoying me, that there could be a problem here that needs to be solved? And maybe my skills can use that. That's a really good point there. Very nice. Well, Amy, on that as well, I like to think about this as well, that like a flow state, I'm guessing, and help me out with this one, that when you are living on purpose, because I think, if I'm honest, that so I share a conversation with you. I had a conversation with a therapist like a few weeks ago. I got a free ticket for some therapy with the podcast show in London. I thought, I'm going to give it a go. Free therapy, wicked, And it was fantastic. And pardon the pun, but it was like therapy, Amy. It was fantastic. And I said this question to him, which was linked with this about purpose. And I said to him that, as we've shared on your podcast about how I've been feeling, about some of the things I'm experiencing with magic, and is it really filling the cup as it was? No, it's probably not. And I said to the therapist, is it arrogant of me to think that there is something bigger and better within me? Because I said to him, I can feel there's something here. And I experienced these moments of like flow state where, me and Steve from the Confidant, we like to describe it as it's like giving a 40-minute keynote and it feels like 4 minutes. It's brilliant. It's fun. And I said to him this, and he said, I wouldn't be surprised, Ricky, if you were labeling yourself there as arrogant because of your life, the way you were conditioned. You were always conditioned to play it safe. Obviously, I won't go into that. I'll have to write another episode about that and pour my heart out. But that's how, as a lot of listeners will know, I played everything safe, left school, got a job, and just kind of sleepwalked, like you were saying earlier on. And now it's like, well, actually, no, that there's something, this isn't for me. This isn't all that I'm here to do. There's something bigger and better. And he said to me, like you said earlier on, this is so weird that I'm saying this now. He said, obviously, you shouldn't worry about, Ricky, what other people think about you. You should just be more Ricky. I thought, how weird is that? But I'm guessing the question I wanted to ask is, I guess that's a sign, I'm guessing, for listeners out there, like those flow states of when something just feels like, in my example at the Confident Club, a 40-minute keynote just feels like 4 minutes. Is that sort of signs that we're seeing that people are living on their purpose or doing something that makes them feel great?
Oh, there's so many different strands to that question. And also what you've just shared there. I want to ask you, if it's not you, then who is it going to be? Who's going to make those changes? And is that arrogance, or is that an empowerment of understanding and recognizing your strengths and putting them to the best possible use in the world?
True. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And the other thing is, in life, there are only the tasks that only you can do. You can't do other people's tasks for them. If you look at Adlerian psychology, or if you look at the work that Byron Katie does, and in Loving What Is, there is reality. Okay. There is that sort of, you can't make the wind stop blowing. Okay. It's just going to blow. You can't make a dog meow or a cat bark, right? Yeah. There are things that are out of your control, and there are things that are in your control. Okay. You can't make people do other things. And quite often what happens is you're so busy living other people's lives for them that no one's living your life. Okay. So that comes back to the arrogance again. It's not arrogant. It's your responsibility to do what is your life, to live your life, and to live that in the best possible way that you can. Now, Csikszentmihalyi, who is a positive psychologist who talks a lot about flow, it's the concept there is that when you are doing something where you are so happy, you are really focused because you are in control of everything you're doing, you love it, you're being creative and productive, you do lose that sense of time. And it is when you know that this is your forte. And you and I, we absolutely love podcasting. We could sit here all day because it is just in our space of being able to chat, having those fantastic conversations with people, pulling out the best from each of them. And that's our happy space. So yes, you hear about the expressions that you have with flow, where you're talking about go against your flow or go with the flow or let things flow. Flow is important. You know, it really is important to achieve flow and to be in flow, because you are more likely to achieve greater work. You're going to be happier. You're going to be less stressed. Your productivity is going to be increased. And so from a perspective of what's going to make a difference in the world, for you to focus on when you are in flow is a huge piece to contribution.
Yeah, definitely. I guess there's some better questions that we can start asking ourselves, you know, to start identifying this, and not necessarily finding the purpose, because like you said earlier on, we don't want to kind of just go out there and go find it. And particularly, I remember you saying on another podcast about how some people find it and some people create it. So there's that element there of taking that responsibility. There's something that's in my mind about a conversation that I was having with the therapist. Me, I've got a therapist, right? That sounds so cool. I've always wanted to say that. I have a therapist. I finished the free trial now. Anyway, but we were talking about this idea of obviously the Truman Show. I've got this great painting which I've shared on another podcast. But in the Truman Show movie, like, he lives in a world that is made for him, and he's obviously the actor in that kind of TV show, so he doesn't kind of have any control in it. But that's basically what life is, isn't it? We are making those constructs for our own life and our own thoughts and our feelings. But sometimes, like he does in the movie, we have to take that responsibility and exit those constructs and start living that life, because there are so many people that I encounter with, and I'm sure that you do the same, that are quite happy being ordinary. You know, like some of my friends down the pub, if I was sharing this conversation, it would just fly over their head, because they're just quite happy. They're settled. And for me, that it doesn't frustrate me, But I think probably because I've had a taste of that life of like, there is more out here. There is, we can leave this behind and there's good stuff here. I'm guessing there's a lot of challenges that we get from people. It could be fear, or it could be that they're afraid. Do you get that? Do you find that there's a lot of people that are just quite happy with ordinary? They don't want to be extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to the questions that you're asking yourself every day and the choices and decisions that you'll make off the back of those questions. And a lot of it is linked to comfort, to the fear of the unknown. So yes, I like pushing myself because I've seen results and I've seen what happens as the result of pushing myself into a space that's uncomfortable. We're in the Professional Speaking Association. People who speak for a living and they're comfortable doing that. But it wasn't always that way. People who stand up and speak, it's an uncomfortable space. There are lots of different things going on. The fear of rejection, the fear of people not getting what they're trying to communicate, the fear of not being able to say anything at all because they get all hot and sweaty and clammy and they maybe it may pass out because it's just such a daunting thing to stand up in front of people. I've pushed myself using the Professional Speaking Association. I've pushed myself to enjoy and to understand the connection that I can make. And it comes back to that responsibility again. I see it as my responsibility to share the knowledge in the knowing that people who are listening and in the audience are going to benefit from that reception of that particular wisdom that I share or practical application that they're going to take on board. So I see it as a duty. I see it as a responsibility. And I think that's sort of comes with the midlife beginnings piece is my point now. I'm like, okay, so there's a translation of what's come before. And now it's an application period of, right, I've done this. And now it's a case of moving into the next chapter of my life. Right. Well, then it's a passing on of knowledge. And I think that's a natural process that we go through in life anyway. And have done for, generations. And that's where the storytelling comes in. Using the podcast here as a storytelling opportunity to share the various pieces of information. And people love hearing stories. That's what we're all about.
Yeah, agreed. Amy, as a question that you always ask your podcast guests, my question to you, this is coming, is why? What about your why? Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, I mean, it comes from, I can't bear to see, I don't do regret, and I can't bear to see life wasted, sort of missed potential. And I have a fascination for understanding why people do what they do. That's the whole podcast piece, is bringing them on to share their stories. So it is my mission, and it's a chosen conscious mission now, and a responsibility that I've taken on as a podcaster and as a life purpose coach to provide stories, to provide the insight and knowledge that my guests have, that I have. And these are going to create these ripple effects that I talk about. And so I consciously and create these episodes to focus on the purpose piece, to help people understand that there is so much variety, that it is your own journey, that there will be similar catalysts. Quite often in life, there's a particular event that is the reason, which is why some people have that huge clarity piece because of something that's happened, and they see it a lot clearer afterwards. But for me to know that if I'd had that help, and if I'd seen that clearer a while ago, as I said, I don't do regret, but if I'd been able to see it clearer, then I would be able to understand how I can make decisions easier, how choices can come to me, how my values are the compass that really help me, that if I'd been in conflict before, it was the values that were being challenged. And, I didn't consciously know what they were, but now I do. And I now know that it's so much easier working with clear core values at hand. So yeah, I'm helping people who are questioning how to live a life of purpose. I'm helping people who are standing at those crossroads and not knowing which direction to go in, and helping them. One person came to me and said that they were stuck in a washing machine and they just felt like they were on the cycle. It's just continually going round and round. And yeah, it was exhausting. So yeah, it's clarity is buried in this fog, and I help people to extract it, to remove themselves from that.
That's brilliant. And I echo that. I love that metaphor, the washing machine. That's fantastic. And it does feel like that, doesn't it? We get the old metaphors of the rat race, but that's how it feels. And I think that's what I was experiencing. And it's only recently having that awakening, those light bulb moments going, wow, you know what? Yeah, it isn't arrogant of me. Let's just go do it. Let's just go enjoy and make this life. Well, continuing that theme then, as we kind of wrap up the podcast in terms of responsibility, for anyone listening out there who might be really inspired by this, who are thinking, yeah, do you know what? This kind of resonates with me. I need to start taking some responsibility. What would you say that people can start doing now in terms of taking responsibility to start living their purpose or even finding it?
Yeah, it's just a case of knowing that who you are, what you do, and what you have is all within your control. Okay. And what you want to have determines who you become and what you do. So what are you doing? Are you living or are you existing? Are you in control? Are you taking control and living your life with self-awareness, with responsibility, and doing something you're passionate about? And that can be, as I said earlier, either that's something that angers you or something that fills you with joy, because what you do today is going to shape the future and the way that you live in the future. And surround yourself with those people who are going to help support you to achieve that.
That's amazing. Amy, here's a side question. I wasn't prepared to ask this, but I can see that you're on this fascinating journey in terms of what you've already done and the people that you're talking to and where you're going. What's the future look like for you?
It's really exciting. And I've got a few things planned. A book is one of them, or a series of books for sure. And I also have a word for every year at the moment. Last year was opportunity. This year is adventure. And so in the spirit of adventure, Ricky, I am allowing some things to be planned, but also allowing some things to be spontaneous. Allowing spontaneity, that doesn't even make sense. But it does to me. It means that I am just open to opportunities that come my way. So in terms of future, I know that this is now a lifelong project for sure. Okay. It will evolve. Things do. So I am allowing the freedom and flexibility of this project of focus on why to evolve into where it needs to go. It already has been taken where it needs to go by the people who have been tuning in. So I'm going to be looking to the audience, looking to see where it's naturally going to be evolving. And that's exciting.
Yes. And I can't wait to join you on the adventure and find and watch and see what happens, Amy. Good luck with you. Well, Amy, a question that we're going to ask to wrap up, and I'm starting to ask everyone this now, this idea of unlocking ourselves. What does it mean to you, unlocking ourselves and being the best version of yourself?
So our default purpose is to grow and to learn. And as long as we are continuing to grow and learn, that's how we're going to unlock our best selves. And so every day I'm always looking to read something. I'm always looking to apply something new that I haven't done before. I'm looking to reach out for building new connections. I'm looking to build on existing connections. And I focus on my values. So I'm always using those as my homing piece, but also to really define where it is I want to go. And in being true and aligning myself to my values of achievement, of brilliance, of connectedness, and of diversity, and of effervescence, I know that seeing how they shape each day for me will unlock my better version of me.
Thank you. That's amazing. Well, Amy, if people want to find out more about what it is that you offer, I know that obviously we've had conversations with podcast mentoring and all the other services that you offer as well. How can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I'd love people to reach out. So amyrowlinson.com is the easiest way, and everything is all on my website there. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, you can also find me there. But if you go to Amy Rowlinson, that's the one thing you can remember, and then it will take you in the right direction.
Amy, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on Unlocked. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thanks, Amy, for coming on to the podcast. Absolutely loved our conversation, and I truly feel inspired to start identifying more flow moments in my life and recognizing those signs where I'm living to my purpose and why I am here. Amy, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate that. Now, if you're anyone listening to this right now, if you did enjoy this episode, then just show me and Amy a little bit of love. Share this with your friends. Put it on Instagram. Put it on social media. Put it on LinkedIn, or even just head over to Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Leave us a quick review. It takes about 3 seconds, and let us know what you think to this episode. It will get this episode shared to more people around the world. But I'm interested. I want to hear about you. Tell me about your purpose and what you're doing right now, and if you're living to your purpose in life. And if not, let's see if we can help you get on board and get on with living your purpose. Now, as always, thank you to the patrons of this podcast. Thank you, Anthony Howe, Sherry Brenton, Chris Lovett, Steve McDermott, and Rory Barnes for your continued support. It always means a lot to me. If you want to head over to the patrons, you can join our community for just the price of a cup of coffee. Head over to the link in the show notes or head to patreon.com/unlocked podcast. Anyway, thanks for listening to this episode with Amy Rowlinson. Good luck wherever you are, and enjoy, and good luck in your life unlocking the best version of yourself. See you next week. Bye-bye.